Hello and welcome to Traditional Painting the Digital Way. This is where I use digital painting apps to teach traditional painting techniques. This is part 6 in my Guitar Man Portrait series. And in this video, I'm going to show how to add the glasses, and we'll start a little bit painting on the shirt. The app that we're using is Corel Painter 2020 for Windows. And what we're going to do is the big step of adding the glasses. Now you don't add the glasses till you've got the eyes pretty much the way you want them. So here I'm just kind of doing a few last minute things, working on the eyelid, adding a little bit more of some highlights to it, and just kind of doing some of the final shapes on the eye right there. I just want to try to get the eyelid a little bit better, and then we start the glasses. Now, put this on a separate layer if you're doing this digitally, because if you don't, you'll be sorry. If you're doing this traditionally, take a piece of chalk, a charcoal, vine charcoal, the white charcoal, and draw it on first. And don't put any paint on the canvas until you've got the shape correctly if you're working traditionally. And like I said, if you're working digitally, make sure this is on a separate layer, because if you don't, it will just mess all that hard work up that you've done. So as you can see, I'm working on the glasses here, and I don't have them exactly right. So what I'm going to have to do is work on them, work on the shape, try to get that a little bit better. And because I've got them on a separate layer, I can use the eraser to go back and correct all this stuff. And if you're doing this traditionally and you're using the chalk, make sure that you're just using chalk or white charcoal or something that can come off really easy, and don't press down hard on your canvas. Don't make an indentation, because you don't want lines there where you might have got the thing wrong. So as you can see, I haven't got it exactly right, so I'm going back and I'm erasing the parts that don't look correct. And so I'm trying to zoom in here on the Corel Painter here so I can get a better look at it, and also get a better shape. So I'm going back with the opaque acrylic, and then that did something really weird, which is why you definitely want it on that other layer. And then I went back and hit the undo button on that. And I'm trying to add a little bit of the highlights. He's got sort of gold rimmed glasses. And so I'm trying to add the highlights here to the glasses, and they're still not exactly the correct shape. So I'll have to come back and fix that again in a minute. And I'm trying to use the Navigator to move the picture around. Sometimes it's a little bit tricky. You can also just pan it, and there's a command that will also just pan it, but anyway, I like to use the Navigator window for that, because you can see where you're at, sort of. And then again, I'm working on the shape of it, and I'm erasing and going back over it, trying to get that lens correct there, and see how it looks and how it hits his eye, where it hits on his eye and things like that, and the where they go on his ears, and just kind of working on that. And they're kind of an oval shape because they're at an angle, so that makes it a little bit tricky. They're not a perfectly round circle there. So I'm just kind of trying to eyeball that. I'm not using any guides or any compass things or anything like that. Just sort of trying to see how it hits on his nose, where it hits on his nose, and around on his eyes. And so again, I'm going back over that. And as I said, if you're working with this traditionally, don't put a drop of paint on there until you've got it correct with your chalk, because otherwise you'll have to fix it, and that's a real hard thing to do. You don't want to do that. So here I'm just kind of working on adding the highlights there, trying to get the shape of the glasses a little bit better. And I'm using the Detail Opaque brush because it's designed with trying to make small details in mind here. And so I'm just kind of working on the highlight, smudging it out, and trying to get a broken look, because as you can see, the highlights on the metal rim of the glasses are not completely solid. In some parts they're shadowed, and in some parts they're highlighted. So you don't want a complete solid line there. You kind of want a broken line. And so I'm trying to do that and make it look like there's just little glints on his glasses there. And then you can kind of zoom out, see what that looks like. I decided I needed to straighten those a little bit, and they're a little bit darker looking in the picture, I can tell. So, and then there's a little bit of some shadow on his face from the glasses. So I'm trying to use kind of a glaze type of a thing. I'm using acrylic gel wash in Infinite Painter. And if you're following along traditionally, just get some really thin water and some purple with really thin down paint. Deoxazine purple will work. And just kind of glaze it on there and rub it out with your finger. Make sure that it's not a real hard line. And I'm just kind of working a little bit more on the shadows on his neck there as well with that purple color. You kind of want to spread that around because it gives color continuity to your picture. You want to kind of have that color throughout your picture there so it doesn't just stand out in the face. And I'm working a little bit on the nose, just kind of adding a little bit of that purple color all around, and then trying to blend it in. And here I was using just add water, some grainy water, and trying to get that look subtle there. I don't want a big old purple blob there, so I was trying to kind of blend that out. And that's why if you're doing that traditionally, you want a really thin glaze mixture for to put on his face there for the shadow. And so I'm just kind of working on that, trying to smooth it out, and using the diffuse blur brush and Corel Painter, and just going over the shadows on the hair. There's a little bit of some shadows on the hair too, made from the hat, so I'm adding a little bit of purple there. Just kind of going around and smoothing things up a little bit on his face, trying to smooth in the colors. Again, you don't want it to look monotone, but you do want all these lines to be softened, because you don't want to make him look real old, because he's not. And so then I switched back to the regular photo, and if you hit the control key and the zoom button, that makes the photo reference shrink. So that makes it zoom out. And there's also so that's the keyboard shortcut there for that. And so then I'm adding a little bit of a highlight on his chin and on his cheeks, just trying to get a little bit of that with some light yellow color and light pinkish color, trying to get some of the final highlights there just around on his face, where you can see that the light is hitting, and that just gives it the more three-dimensional look. And of course you don't want it to be too bright though. You want to smudge those in and make sure that they blend in well, but you want to make sure that they're there, because that just gives the three-dimensional look of a person's face, and then it doesn't look so flat. The light and the dark, that's what gives the three-dimensional look in a painting. And here I wanted to go ahead and add a little bit more of the dark back into his hair. He has flecks of a dark color, so wanted to add that and just kind of work a little bit more on the shape of his eyebrows. add a little bit more of the shadow right on the edge of his nose where the glasses are, and a little bit on his cheekbones, and try to accentuate that a little bit, and of course make sure that you smudge that in after you put it on there. And so just kind of trying to do some final touches on the face. And so you can use the detail opaque brush for that. And if you're following along traditionally, you can definitely use a number 3 round for those details, or the short script brush. And here I'm working on the hat band, and I'm adding the blue colors there because they're actually blue. It's not really black and white there. So I'm adding a turquoise color there, and you can use cerulean blue with a little bit of green in it to get a turquoise color, or you can use ultramarine blue with phthalo yellow green if you're following along with your acrylics, and that gives you kind of a turquoise color. And I'm just kind of using ultramarine blue for the other darker blues. And then I noticed that the concho type thing was sort of a gold color, so I added a little light wash of yellow over that. And I didn't take away from the shadows, I just added a little bit of a yellowish look to it. And then here I shrink it down, and this is kind of like the step back, and you look at your photo reference and you look at what you've done and just kind of compare them and see what you need to add there. And if you're doing this traditionally, step back from your canvas, have a blown up picture of your photo reference and sort of tape it on the canvas next to it, or something where you can compare the two, and just step back and look at it about 6 feet at least, so that you can see what you need to do, see the shapes and kind of the overall shadows. And that's what I'm trying to do here, is just kind of get an idea of what I need to do on the shadows. And then here I'm working on his neck, and as you can see in the overexposed photo, he has a necklace on. So I wanted to add that. Just that kind of little detail just adds to the character of your portrait, and shows who that person is, the kind of jewelry that they like. That just kind of gives more detail to who they are. And so I wanted to add that in there. And so I was kind of working a little bit more on his neck, adding a little bit more color there, and working on the collar of his shirt, trying to get the shape right. And you can use lighter blues or purples for the shadow on that collar. So that's what I'm doing, kind of adding a blue for that shadow there. Just trying to get the shape of how the collar goes and the edge of it. And also kind of the buttons and all those things that are along the edge of the collar there. And so, and then I can tell that he's got probably a turquoise necklace on as well. So I added a little bit of turquoise color right there where his shirt opens, so you can see his necklace. And then again, I want to step back or zoom out to see what it's looking like, just to kind of give me an idea of if it's looking like the person. Here I wanted to work a little bit more on the hat shape. It seemed to me that the hat shape was a little bit too long, so I went ahead and kind of worked on it a little bit more. And of course I had to add the highlights again on it, and sort of add the edge on the brim. But it's okay, it doesn't have to be exactly the same color that you used for the highlight, because in the picture the light hits things differently, and it may be brighter in parts of it and a little bit darker in others. So it doesn't have to be completely the same color there for that. So I'm just kind of working on the edge of the brim there and trying to get that shadow, the way that shadow is in the crease of the hat and the bend of it right there. Trying to show that it bends a little bit there on the edge. And so I'm just kind of working a little bit more on the hair, going back, trying to do the brim of the hat there, trying to get the right shape. So I'm using the hair color to get the right shape of the hat, and maybe that he has a little bit more hair over his ears. So I went ahead and added a little bit there. And then I started working on the vest that he has, and the vest is mainly black, but I'm using a dark blue color, and you would probably you could use black and throw in some ultramarine blue. And you want to make the wrinkles, so the wrinkles will be highlighted with kind of a lighter blue color. And if you're following along traditionally with your acrylics, probably ultramarine blue with white acrylic gesso, and then you're going to smudge all that in a minute. And here I wanted to add the lights, the reflected light to the eyes. You have to be really careful for that. And what I wanted to do was kind of dim them down a little bit. I thought that they were a little too bright, and you can do that. We'll just take some of your flesh color and a lot of water and just kind of glaze that over the reflected highlight in the eyes, and that just kind of makes it a little bit dimmer and not quite so bright looking. I just wanted to kind of, I thought it distracted from the picture a little too much. So I wanted to kind of make that a little bit duller. And I'm also adding a little bit more of some pink skin tone there. And you can use alizarin crimson with white acrylic gesso, or you can use cadmium red light with white acrylic gesso to make that. I'm just kind of trying to show the cheekbone structure there a little bit more. Adding back the blue highlight there because we want to have that there, the reflected blue highlight, because that's sort of reflecting off of his clothes. So you want that to add depth to the picture. And again, just kind of working a little bit more on the facial structure. And that's what you have to do to get a likeness. You have to just kind of keep going back, look at it, leave it a while, work on something else, work on a different part of the picture, and then go back and add what you think might help a little bit more, and then go back and work on some more, and just keep doing that till you finally get the likeness that you're happy with. And then so here I wanted to go ahead and work a little bit more on the vest and the shoulder there. And so I'm adding a little bit more of the dark folds now to the vest, trying to get a fold, the fold that goes through the middle right there. And I'm using the detail opaque. You can use your number 6 round if you're following along traditionally. Just make sure that you smudge all these lines out. You want it to be smudged. And you can use, like I said, your finger or a paper towel if you don't want to get paint on your hands. But you need to smudge those out because that's what gives the folds and the look of wrinkles in the clothes. So that's what I'm working on right there, just trying to get that big wrinkle that's right there above his hand. So this is the end of part 6 in my Guitar Man series. And in part 7, we're going to start working more on the vest and the clothes, and also start working on the arms and the hand and the guitar. So if you want to see that, hit the subscribe button, and thanks everybody for watching. Thank you so much for your support. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments down below, and I will catch you later.